red deserts burning under the sun, pine-covered mountains crowned by eternal snows, and deep canyons painted with the colors of the sunset. Forests of golden poplars, waving like flames in the autumn wind, crystal-clear lakes, a hope for life in the middle of the desert, expanses of white salt, a lunar landscape under the relentless azure, and starry skies over endless plains where the night reveals its splendor. This is Utah, an untamed land in the heart of North America, where a frenzy of biomes rises before your eyes. In this natural empyrean, wildlife is untamed, in a mixture of beauty and savagery like never before seen. Every corner of Utah is dominated by the most impressive wildlife species. The roadrunner, deep in the hostile desert, flaps its wings under the blazing sun. The majestic deer moose butt their antlers in the coniferous forests. Meanwhile, beavers, ecosystem engineers, cut down tall trees with their robust canines. It is, quite simply, one of the greatest displays of wildlife on the planet. Trumpeter swans congregate in their hundreds on crystal-clear lakes. The bighorn sheep, a horned beast, climbs steep cliffs. And the great horned owl, a guardian of the night, unfolds its silent flight in the darkness. In this animal world, each species plays a delicate role in the balance of nature. From the tiny white-tailed antelope squirrel to the enormous American bison, the wild inhabitants of this earthly paradise wage a perpetual struggle for survival. The desert tortoise buries itself in the sand to escape the infernal heat. The American pika hoards huge amounts of hay to endure the harsh winter, and the sergeant thrush competes fiercely for the best nesting sites. However, within this web of wildlife, some species, relying on their sharp claws and lethal bite, have managed to subjugate the entire ecosystem to their will. From the thick sagebrush thickets emerges the bobcat, a ferocious predator, willing to take countless lives to satisfy its vast appetite. One leap, one swipe, and another victim has fallen into its clutches. Across the arid canyons, the puma, a stealthy hunter, emerges as the tyrant of this vast food chain. A deafening silence and a faint figure lurking in the shadows are all that precedes an unstoppable attack, where even the slightest hope of survival vanishes. Meanwhile, besieging the winding rivers, the black bear, an imposing beast as dark as the night itself, devours everything in its path. When this giant goes hunting, no wild species is safe from falling prey to its enormous appetite. Hunt after hunt, these predators exert iron control over the ecosystem, imposing their will through force. Located in the middle of the American Wild West, Utah covers an area of just over 200,000 square kilometers, almost the size of the entire United Kingdom. Utah is a land of contrasts, where a myriad of biomes dominate its latitudes. In the north, the Wasatch Range, a satellite mountain range of the Rocky Mountains, defines the landscape, with jagged peaks reaching up to 3,000 meters. At these elevations, the slopes are tinged with verdant forests of fir, pine, and aspen. To the southeast, the vast Colorado Plateau dominates the horizon, creating sandstone canyons, deep gorges, natural arches, and monoliths, where vibrant colors tinge the rock formations. In this rugged terrain, cliffs drop dramatically into river valleys shaped by the Colorado River. And to the west, the Great Basin, a vast desert, rises into view. Here, mountain ranges alternate with flat, arid valleys, housing one of the world's largest salt flats. Each and every corner of this ecosystem is governed by the eternal melody of the seasons. In spring, the ice on the mountains melts, and the lush vegetation begins its slow greening. The hot, dry summer mercilessly lashes valleys and deserts, while high in the mountains, the climate is cooler and more generous. In autumn, the first snowfalls take over the high peaks, while the forests are tinged with vibrant yellows, oranges, and reds. Winter brings by far the most challenging season for this ecosystem, with the thermostat reaching freezing even in the typically hot deserts, and mountainous areas covered in a dense blanket of white. Despite all the challenges that Utah's seasonal parade may bring, diverse forms of plant life manage to thrive even in the most inhospitable places. In the midst of dry deserts, agave and juniper plants sprout from the inert earth, defying all logic. On the banks, reeds, willows, and poplars take over the shore, taking advantage of the abundance of the vital liquid. Meanwhile, the forests and mountains are home to poplars, pines, conifers, and alpine wildflowers, which are at their most beautiful during early summer. Precisely among these thick mountain forests, the almighty apex predator of this ecosystem appears. A startling leap of up to 5 meters, a direct bite to the neck, and it's the end for another of the wild mountain lion's unfortunate prey. The puma, a fierce and powerful feline, stands as the lord and master of every space in untamed Utah. With a robust build of up to 100 kilograms and reaching almost 3 meters in length, this enormous feline represents the figure of death itself for many species. Even in the vast natural ecosystem that is Utah, the cougar is capable of inhabiting any of its biomes, as long as they offer sufficient vegetation cover and, of course, juicy prey to devour. Coniferous forests, sagebrush thickets, rocky terrain, and even riparian areas can be the setting where this cunning hunter stages all his acts of savagery. Walking slowly through the rugged landscape, alone, the mountain lion lies in wait, waiting for the right moment to claim a new victim. Despite its enormous size, thanks to its fur, which ranges from reddish-brown to grayish, this beast is capable of disappearing in plain sight, hiding from its prey until it's too late. Its secretive nature, along with its crepuscular and nocturnal habits, gives it an added advantage when embarking on a new hunt. Although its physical superiority allows it to dominate any species regardless of its strategy, the puma is a cold and calculating hunter who prefers to subdue its victims in a fleeting and silent ambush. Upon spotting potential prey, this ingenious predator activates its prodigious stealth skills to plan its highly elaborate attack. With enviable patience, the feline calculates every last detail of its frantic attack, preventing its prey from escaping. While it can impose its will on species such as rabbits, hares, marmots, birds, elk, and even bighorn sheep, the favorite prey of this uncompromising carnivore is mule deer. After stalking the ungulate for several minutes or even hours, the puma abandons its camouflage and with a leap falls upon its defenseless prey, who just seconds before was enjoying a fresh bunch of grass. With the help of its very sharp claws, the cougar attaches itself to the deer's body, eliminating all hope of escape. After a brief struggle, the carnivore, realizing its cruel intentions, sinks its lethal bite into the prey's neck, crushing its trachea with tremendous force and suffocating it in just a few seconds, even breaking its bones with the help of its long canines, measuring up to 4 centimeters. After a successful hunt, this cunning hunter, with no time to waste, sinks his teeth into the juicy deer meat, breaking a fast of several days. Even though mule deer are its favorite victims, after devouring up to 7 kilograms in a single meal, the leftovers are usually quite copious. And in an ecosystem as wild as Utah, not even this almighty predator can afford to waste food. So it decides to scavenge the remains of its prey, dragging it and taking it to a safe place, where it can be protected from scavengers. Here, crevices between rock formations or even the tops of trees in mountain forests are a more than convenient location, because yes, this feline is an excellent climber. No matter how hard it tries to hide the remains of its prey, the fresh scent of carrion has often already traveled for miles in the air, alerting unwanted visitors to the mountain lion's successful hunt. While virtually no species is willing to even approach a puma's domain with the intention of stealing its prey, sometimes it is precisely another puma who, by invading its conspecific's domain, attempts to seize a desirable piece of carrion. Although a feline's domain can span up to 100 square kilometers, when a substantial hunt is on the line, the intoxicating smell of meat can prompt these unwanted incursions. As soon as it detects that an intruder has crossed the borders of its land, the resident feline will go to the scene, where both carnivores quickly collide. As these two formidable beasts cross paths, tension fills the air, and nearby birds and mammals take cover to avoid becoming collateral damage in the fierce encounter that is about to take place. Deep, low growls accompanied by loud snorts are one of the first warning signals emitted by the resident puma, inviting the invader to leave its territory, as well as the stranger, with a view to expressing its firm intentions to take over its prey. Tense tails, flattened ears, and a subtle display of sharp fangs are other of those not at all discreet threatening postures, which seek to dissuade the rival from initiating a bloody physical confrontation. Ignoring the frightening displays, the invading feline, driven by hunger, does not relent in its incursion, advancing with slow steps and bristling its fur, trying to appear larger and more imposing. With neither predator willing to give in, after maintaining eye contact for a few seconds, each puma pounces on its opponent at surprising speed, with nothing to hide, launching strong claws directly at its rival's face. Its powerful bite is a weapon that can end a fight in just a few seconds. Its bites target critical areas, such as the neck and back, seeking to cause as much damage as possible. After just a few seconds, bloody wounds quickly appear, and the fight turns chaotic, with each feline trying to gain an advantageous position. Only a well-placed bite or a strong swipe can decide the outcome of the fight. After a few minutes, one of the pumas begins to weaken, and, in an attempt to preserve its life, decides to opt for unconditional surrender, yielding to the now dominant feline, adopting a submissive posture by exposing its belly or crouching down. The victor may launch one last swipe as a show of dominance before allowing his opponent an unseemly escape, after which he claims ownership of the disputed prey. Of course, this substantial carcass won't last forever, and sooner rather than later, he'll have to dive back into one of his harrowing hunts. In fact, one of its possible future prey is a robust mammal that lives in the steep terrain of rocky slopes. Traversing steep cliffs and deep canyons, the bighorn sheep is another of those captivating species that take refuge in Utah's biodiverse ecosystem. Weighing up to 140 kilograms for rams and no more than 90 kilograms for ewes, these massive sheep have established themselves in the most hostile biomes of this wild kingdom. In addition to having a beautiful coat in shades of brown, with a distinctive white patch on the rump, males of the species boast characteristic spirally curved antlers, which can weigh up to 14 kilograms and remain constantly growing throughout their lives. Females, on the other hand, also have horns, although these are much smaller and less curved. Unlike many other ungulates, bighorn sheep tend to live in segregated single-sex groups outside the breeding season, where females live with their young, while rams congregate in bachelor flocks. Traversing steep cliffs, these sheep move with enviable dexterity through terrain that represents an impregnable wall for other species. Their broad, split hooves provide firm traction and cushion and adapt to uneven terrain. Their muscular legs also give them the necessary leverage to leap between cliffs at distances of up to 6 meters, all with impressive precision. This tortuous habitat corresponds to a survival mechanism which places them far from the reach of the vast majority of predators. At hundreds, if not thousands of meters above sea level, carnivores are few and far between, and they pose a real threat to the survival of these ungulates. Beasts like the puma, coyote, and golden eagle are some of the few predators that can see these remote horned creatures as accessible prey. Of course, to escape these food chain tyrants, bighorn sheep rely on their vertiginous habitat, filled with cliffs, overhangs, and other rock formations, where even taking a couple of steps is a challenge. One of the advantages of living in large groups is collective vigilance, with several rams or ewes guarding the perimeter. Here, they use their very keen vision, which allows them to detect potential threats up to several hundred meters away, and thus initiate a rapid escape. Although a quick retreat will always be the first option upon seeing a carnivore nearby, when there are young at stake during the breeding season, the males can become somewhat temperamental and will not tolerate cruel hunters threatening their offspring, becoming extremely aggressive and even using their striking antlers for what they were made for, ramming their potential captors. Typically, after a warning charge, the sheep have more than enough time to flee, leaving the predator, be it a cougar or perhaps a coyote, with an empty stomach. While their isolated home high in the rocky outcrops offers an insurmountable advantage in the fight against predators, when it comes to finding food, it can be a real challenge. Fortunately, their excellent climbing skills also come in handy when traveling long distances in search of grasses, herbs, shrubs, or even mosses and lichens. During these marathon marches across rugged terrain, patience is key, as these herbivores can spend long days searching for something to satisfy their hunger. Their extensive knowledge of the terrain allows them to locate the most nutritious grasses, avoiding toxic weeds. Also, by using their front paws to dig in the soil, they can unearth succulent snacks in the form of tender roots. As a good example of a ruminant species, after eating, they tend to lie down for long periods of time to digest their food, getting the most out of their somewhat low-nutrient meals. Since the weather can be completely unpredictable at such altitudes, thermoregulation is one of the tasks that takes up a large part of their day, seeking shade during hot days and shelter when temperatures drop below zero. The social life of bighorn sheep is truly impressive. In matriarchal herds, an older female stands as the leader of the flock, making decisions in a cohesive group where the priority is the protection of the lambs, so they always remain alert to their surroundings, alert for the appearance of any possible threat. The sheep gangs, on the other hand, are much more unstable groups, where dominance is established through brute force and ferocity. In a hierarchy that will influence mating season, males compete in dominance duels, with headbutting battles at the climax of the fight. In these confrontations, both ungulates collide head-on, then retreat about 20 meters across the steep terrain. From one moment to the next, the sheep charge at each other at high speed, using their robust horns as weapons. After the crash, the roar can be heard up to several kilometers away. These duels can include up to a dozen of these enormous charges, after which one of the rams begins to give way. While these collisions can be extremely violent, the truth is that rather than killing their opponent, the ungulates simply intend to establish themselves as dominant, a position they will take advantage of when numerous females in heat are nearby. Far from the bighorn sheep's isolated high-altitude home on the edge of Utah's vast wetlands, other temperamental males are about to come into conflict over ownership of a fertile female. Shortly after landing in these tranquil freshwater tributaries, the kingfishers, as if colonizing, begin to take over the best spots on the banks of the pond. The later arrival of the legs gives meaning to the urgent establishment of territory carried out by the males. With the mating season fast approaching, ducks eager to mate are doing everything they can to secure the best territories and thus attract the attention of females. In this species, one of the most marked sexual dimorphisms is present. The ducks boast striking iridescent green plumage on their heads, with a white collar around their necks, and a captivating purple-brown breast. In contrast, its body is usually mostly gray, with vibrant orange legs and a greenish-yellow beak. While the males boast an extraordinarily striking appearance, their legs are, by comparison, experts at camouflage, with plumage in shades of brown and cream, allowing them to go completely unnoticed in the dense wilderness. During the busy breeding season, previously established pairs settle in territories near water, ideal for nesting. For their part, single males prowl around the area, hoping to steal the legs while their partner is not looking. Of course, males don't react in a very friendly way when they see a stranger trying to steal their female. So when they see a stranger trying to win their female, they respond with extreme aggression. Here, strong flapping and hostile pursuits across the water are usually enough to force the invader to flee. By scaring away any potential suitors who dare to approach his female, the male ensures his right to copulation when the female comes into heat. Before they can consummate their relationship, the duck performs elaborate courtship displays, waving its head, raising its tail, and even emitting captivating vocalizations, all with the goal of strengthening the bond with the duck. After courtship, the long-awaited moment for the male arrives, when copulation finally takes place. This is quite brief, and takes place entirely in the water. Given its short duration, the couple may repeat the copulatory act several times during the female's reproductive period in order to ensure fertilization of the leg. After completing multiple copulations, the male mallard considers his work complete and abandons the female with up to 16 eggs on the way. The expectant mother bears the entire burden of raising the baby, in what will be a very demanding incubation process. The first task for the duck will be to prepare the previously occupied territory for laying its future chicks, for which it uses leaf scraps and even feathers from its chest. These birds often nest on the banks of rivers, lakes, and lagoons, where vegetation cover is abundant, perfect for ensuring the safety of their eggs. The selfless mother must perform the exhausting task of incubating the eggs for up to 28 days. During this time, the female's lackluster plumage is a survival measure for the protection of their young. By sitting motionless on the nest, the leg manages to hide both the eggs and itself from birds of prey or any other carnivore that sees them as prey. After the very demanding incubation, the tiny eggs finally begin to hatch. And Utah's vast ecosystem prepares to welcome around a dozen tender ducklings, which are born surprisingly precocious, covered in down, with their eyes open, and even able to walk and swim just a few hours after hatching. Almost immediately after seeing their living ecosystem for the first time, the duck guides her young toward the water, where they will dedicate themselves to searching for food and learning the secrets of survival from a very young age. While the duck is busy raising her large family, the male, completely ignoring what were once his parental duties, has joined a group of bachelors in search of a new female to mate with, demonstrating that, in the world of royal aggregates, monogamy is not an option. If successful, a single male can produce several legs during a single breeding season. However, when it comes to the male's insatiable desire for copulation, females often bear the brunt, as groups of bachelors can often force the females to mate, in extremely hostile acts that seriously injure the females. However, Utah's wildlife is harsh but fair. As the same males who try to force females to mate during the breeding season are threatened by countless predators in a sort of revenge for their reprehensible actions. Foxes, coyotes, raccoons, mink, large snakes, and even birds of prey pose a threat to the survival of these colorful ducks. To protect themselves from almost inevitable death, their legs are hidden in their pale colors, while the striking males have no such luxury. Living in large groups on the edges of wetlands represents an important survival measure, as it allows them to monitor the perimeter of their habitat. Upon detecting an imminent threat, the ducks will not think twice and will quickly flee. In this, their prodigious flying skills are an undeniable advantage, allowing them to escape to the safety of the skies in just seconds. Living on the banks of quiet tributaries also gives them a quick escape route, diving into nearby waters to avoid being devoured. While king mackerels thrive in the densely vegetated areas surrounding riverbanks, far from these claustrophobic biomes, in Utah's prairies and grasslands, herds of pronghorn antelope roam the plains horizon. Weighing up to 70 kilograms and measuring around 1.5 meters in length, this large ungulate is one of those species that is impossible to ignore when it appears in this vibrant natural world. Its distinctive coat in shades of brown and tan on the back contrasts with pure white on the chest, belly, and throat, as well as a characteristic spot on the rump. While bighorn sheep are notable for their spiral and robust antlers, those also known as pronghorns have forked black deciduous horns, especially prominent in males. Differentiating themselves once again from sheep, These ungulates move from living in rugged terrain at high altitudes to inhabiting open spaces, where the plain stretches as far as the eye can see. Although these habitats provide little protection from predators, in fact, pronghorn do not need it. As the second fastest animals in the world behind only cheetahs, these agile ungulates rely on their astonishing speed to avoid falling prey to the rulers of the food chain. Running up to 98 kilometers per hour in short bursts, no species in the entire vast Utah ecosystem can match them in free running. But in addition to being surprisingly fast, they also demonstrate enviable performance in long-distance races, being able to run at speeds of more than 60 kilometers per hour during marathon runs. Of course, to undertake their rapid runs across the plain, they first need to spot potential threats, something in which their very sharp vision plays a decisive role. Being able to see at such incredible distances of up to 5 kilometers, and with an almost panoramic field of vision of about 320 degrees, it is almost impossible for predators such as pumas or coyotes to take these horned beasts by surprise. As with king majestic macaws, group life represents a defensive measure against carnivore attacks. With up to dozens of eyes on the horizon, the chances of being surprised by felines or canines are quite limited. When it detects imminent danger, its large white patch on its rump serves to alert the entire herd by raising the hairs in this area. As soon as one of the antelopes raises the alarm, the entire herd, without a second thought, begins a fleeting escape toward the horizon, in just a few seconds moving hundreds of meters away from what could have been a potential threat. Having survived the cruel intentions of predators, the ungulates set out to replenish their energy by satisfying their appetite. Here, sagebrush, forbs, grasses, wildflowers, and even cacti are at risk of being devoured by these hardy herbivores. In addition to using their keen eyesight to avoid what would otherwise be a painful death, it is of great help in locating those fresh grasses and broadleaf shrubs. A sensitive sense of smell also serves as a compass when it comes to finding the best grazing areas in what would otherwise be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Their admirable habit of spending all day moving across vast distances also ensures that sooner or later they will find a food source, a clear reward for their persistence from the Creator. Distancing themselves from other herbivores that are content to devour any grass or herb that crosses their path, pronghorn are somewhat fussy with their diet, always preferring the freshest and most valuable parts of the forage, from which they can obtain the most nutrients. Despite enjoying tender shoots, fresh leaves, and wildflowers with their appetizing nutritional value, when their environment becomes hostile, with severe food shortages, these ungulates do not hesitate to ingest foods of somewhat more questionable nutritional value, doing everything possible to avoid falling prey to starvation. Like bighorn sheep, antelopes are ruminants, spending much of their daily routine chewing their food to get the most out of each leaf or shoot. Social relationships are an important part of the daily life of these gregarious ungulates, although during the winter and breeding season they can congregate in large herds of up to hundreds of individuals of all sexes. Outside of this demanding season and the rutting season, pronghorns tend to segregate by sex, in a behavior slightly similar to that of bighorn sheep. While females gather in herds with their young fawns and offspring from the previous mating season, males form their own groups in which intimidating postures and acts of brutal violence are their way of establishing themselves as the dominant members of the herd. Communication in these groups is truly unique, including countless visual signals, such as head and ear postures, as well as tail movements. Although they are not very vocal, alarm snorts and soft bleats are also part of their wide social repertoire, especially in the case of females with their young. Likewise, olfactory signals play a central role in establishing territories, and expressing receptivity when the long-awaited breeding season arrives for males, during which they must prove their worth by forming their harems and defending them from other suitors. Far from the plains dominated by pronghorn, and back to the dense sagebrush thickets where visibility is a luxury, the bobcat emerges from the thick vegetation, moving like a shadow, and rising like a lethal predator in the midst of this hostile biome. Although, with a weight of no more than 18 kilograms, and a length of about 1 meter, it falls far behind the puma in terms of bulk. What this feline lacks in size, it makes up for in extreme ferocity. Its tan to reddish-brown fur, with dark spots on the body and legs, gives it exceptional camouflage, allowing it to almost disappear among the vegetation. A kind of furry collar around the face, as well as pointy ears with tufts of fur at the tips, give it a rather striking appearance, impossible to ignore, even in an ecosystem like Utah's, where life thrives in even the smallest corner. In addition to providing thick vegetation cover, bushes offer an ideal habitat for their solitary and territorial lifestyle. Although it can sometimes be seen during the day, the bobcat always prefers to hide in the twilight and darkness brought on by the arrival of night. Thanks to its prodigious eyesight, the feline can move with total ease, even in the middle of the darkest night. This advanced night vision is one of their main weapons for capturing large prey. With sharp retractable claws up to 4 centimeters long and a powerful jaw crowned by sharp fangs, the lynx positions itself as a lethal predator, ready to fill its habitat with death. Its muscular body also gives it enviable agility, allowing it to jump almost 4 meters, enough to catch its unfortunate prey. However, this feline completely goes beyond overflowing its boundless ferocity and limits its acts of savagery to planned ambushes in which even the smallest movement is coldly calculated. Moving through the bushes with unparalleled stealth, the lynx reveals no sign of its presence to its victims until it is too late. In addition to his eyesight, his very keen hearing allows him to detect even the quietest rodent from several hundred meters away. Upon locating his prey, the hunter does not despair, always showing himself patient, and, like a skilled strategist, carefully plans his attack. Able to stalk its prey for up to hours, the lynx waits for the right moment to attack. Aware that a failed hunt could plunge it into desperate starvation, the feline leaves nothing to chance, and finally seeing its opportunity, appears from the vegetation and leaps directly onto its victim. In these lightning attacks, mice, squirrels, rabbits, hares, landbirds, reptiles, and even insects are targeted. Occasionally, substantial prey such as young deer or wounded bighorn sheep may also be part of this skilled hunter's diet. After falling upon its prey, the bobcat doesn't let the fight drag on any longer than necessary, and after a very brief altercation, the carnivore delivers the final blow with a devastating swipe or a lethal bite to the neck, depending on the size of the prey. With a highly accelerated metabolism, the feline needs to consume about 10% of its body weight each day, which is equivalent to about 2 rabbits, to meet its nutritional requirements. After a long day of hunting, with a full stomach, the predator focuses its efforts on other equally important tasks, aimed at maintaining its solitary and elusive lifestyle. By patrolling and guarding the boundaries of its territory, the lynx ensures that no intruder dares to invade its domain. By leaving scent marks of urine and feces, as well as claw marks on fallen trees and logs. The feline warns strangers of the ferocity they will encounter if they continue their journey through its territory. Given Utah's changing climate, this ingenious survivor, just as it adapts its diet to the availability of prey, shapes its behavior depending on how favorable the temperatures are in the ecosystem. While on days when the heat is overwhelming, you may seek refuge in shady spots. When low temperatures pose a threat to your survival, there's nothing a long, warm sunbath can't solve. Grooming is also crucial for maintaining a dog's full thermoregulatory capacity. By cleaning and grooming its fur with its long tongue, it keeps it in good condition, removing vegetation debris and potential parasites. After a long day hunting, guarding its territory, and grooming its beautiful fur, the lynx decides to take a well-deserved rest, sleeping up to 14 hours a day. During these necessary naps throughout the day, this wildcat takes refuge in remote places such as caves, crevices between rocks, abandoned burrows, and corners with dense vegetation. Its habit of hiding for long periods in these places also allows it to stay out of the sights of bloodthirsty predators, because yes, despite its terrifying physical prowess, the lynx can, at times, see how the food chain turns against it, with bloodthirsty carnivores on its trail. In addition to being its main competitor for prey, the puma, a much more robust predator, may view the wild lynx as simply another prey within this entire ecosystem that it governs with an iron fist. Likewise, the coyote, a ferocious dog, will not hesitate to attack the feline if it encounters it in its path, instilling fear in the lynx through its bone-crushing bite. Those same stealth skills that help it secure countless prey are what can allow the feline to escape what would otherwise be certain death. Its enviable climbing ability is another tool the bobcat uses to escape the clutches and jaws of other predators, fleeing to what could be the safety of the trees. Of course, if all its escape strategies fail, being a predator as formidable as the lynx, it will not surrender to a painful death without a fight. So, when cornered, it will unleash all its aggression against adversaries who threaten its life. Using its sharp claws and a lethal bite, the feline will not be an easy prey, standing up to even the most bloodthirsty hunters in Utah's vast wilderness. But the biomes that make up Utah's diverse wilderness aren't just home to ferocious terrestrial predators. When the moon takes over the sky and darkness obscures the most atrocious acts of carnage, the cunning great horned owl emerges as the ruler of the heights, becoming a stealthy killer. Soaring through the skies of dense mountain forests, this robust bird of prey, weighing up to 2.5 kilograms, and with a wingspan of around 1.5 meters, personifies death itself in the eyes of many wild species. Its cryptic plumage, predominantly grayish-brown, with dark bars on the belly, allows it to hide among the bark of trees with astonishing ease, almost disappearing from the eyes of its victims. Its prominent facial disc, along with large yellow eyes, and the characteristic tufts of feathers that give it its distinctive name, give it a captivating yet intimidating appearance. Despite being able to thrive in virtually any biome in this hostile habitat, the great horned owl, as it is also known, prefers to settle in the midst of dense coniferous forests, where they serve as a curtain to hide its brutal acts of savagery during its hunts. As soon as the sun begins to set over the horizon, this bird of prey sees the perfect moment to begin its stalking. When the great horned owl soars high above the ground, prey such as rats, moles, squirrels, rabbits, hares, amphibians, birds, and even fish must be cautious, as this skilled hunter will not hesitate to take their lives. Traversing the skies with a silent flight, this ace of the skies reveals no sign of its feared presence. Thanks to special feathers on the edges of its body that muffle sound, it is able to soar into flight without even making the slightest noise, allowing it to surprise its unsuspecting prey. Its large eyes allow it to scan the dense forest in search of a rodent, or perhaps an amphibian prowling through the vegetation. Likewise, its asymmetrical ears function as a kind of radar, detecting even the slightest squeak up to several hundred kilometers away, sending it the precise coordinates of its prey's location. With its intended victim in its sights, the bird quickly swoops down on it, immediately unsheathing its 5-centimeter-long talons and landing on top of the prey, killing it almost instantly. The impressive strength in its legs allows it to immobilize prey of considerable size, and even fracture its bones with a single blow. With such formidable talons, as soon as the owl has set its sights on its prey, its chances of survival are almost zero. The hunter almost always ends up ending the victim's life with a swipe of his paw, taking it to a more comfortable place, such as a high perch, where he can tear into the juicy flesh with his razor-sharp beak. Since their appetite is relatively limited, consuming only about 150 grams of meat a day, a large prey can often last for quite some time. With a substantial hunt in its clutches, the great horned owl gives the wild inhabitants of its ecosystem a momentary respite, sparing their lives, at least for now. Typically, just as the bird appears out of nowhere during its hunts, after devouring its prey, it disappears into the dense vegetation. On that same perch where it gobbled up all the meat, the owl remains motionless, almost disappearing thanks to its camouflaged plumage. During the time between hunts, this ruthless predator usually rests peacefully in the trees, digesting its food and conserving energy. In addition to branches, holes in logs and rocky outcrops are also cozy and quite comfortable places to curl up, and above all, to remain unnoticed. To maintain the full splendor of their plumage, these birds of prey spend considerable time preening, combing their feathers with their claws and beak to arrange them and remove any traces of dirt. Proper maintenance of their plumage is not only vital for stealthily stalking their prey, but it can literally save their lives by hiding them from predators. Although this hunter's displays of ferocity and savagery make it appear to be an apex predator, the truth is that the food chain is not so kind to it, and many carnivores view the fearsome great horned owl as a succulent prey. Mainly larger birds of prey such as golden eagles are the greatest threats to the survival of great horned owls, who, overcome with fear, always try to avoid these unfortunate encounters with these much more ferocious hunters. Of course, sometimes a great horned owl's greatest enemy can be one of its fellow owls. Exhibiting highly territorial behavior, these aces of the skies do not tolerate intruders entering their domains, so as soon as they detect a stranger, they go out to defend what they consider theirs, in a battle in the heights that can become extremely hostile, and where one of the owls must give in if they do not want to perish. As great horned owls wage a pitched battle for ownership rights to their territories, a few miles outside the forest, where leafy trees begin to disappear and scrubland takes over the ecosystem, a feared mustelid appears. With a robust, flattened body, weighing up to 12 kilograms, the American badger is one of the species that reflects all the wildness and beauty hidden in Utah's wild inhabitants. Its thick, coarse fur, grayish to reddish-brown on the back, with a distinctive facial pattern, and a white stripe running from the nose to the top of the head, gives it a discreet yet captivating appearance. Its muscular front legs are crowned by very long claws, up to 5 centimeters long, making it a professional digger. Living in open biomes, where the soil becomes especially dry, this master of the deep can build its very elaborate burrows. While other wild species are content to take refuge in a simple hole or small depression in the ground, the badger builds veritable underground complexes. The den usually includes one or more entrances, marked by a small mound of earth created by the mammal. These are spacious enough for the badger to enter and exit comfortably. The entrance is followed by a main tunnel, which leads to the chamber, where the mustelid rests, sleeps, and even raises its pups. This central chamber is often covered with vegetation debris to make it more comfortable, and is usually located up to 3 meters deep, enough to completely isolate it from the elements. Most burrows have additional tunnels, which serve as emergency exits as well as food storage chambers. These, far from rudimentary dens, can extend up to several meters underground, demonstrating the surprising subterranean building skills of these mammals. No matter how comfortable its burrow is, when hunger strikes, the American badger does not hesitate to abandon its shelter and go out in search of food. With such prodigious burrowing abilities, the badger could not look for food anywhere other than underground. Being an opportunistic carnivore, this mustelid travels great distances around its territory, carefully scanning the ground for even the slightest sign of rats, voles, ground squirrels, or prairie dogs. With their highly sensitive senses of hearing and smell, a mere whisper of a chirp or the scent of feces is enough to prompt a predator to begin one of its astonishing excavations. With its sharp claws in motion, it's only a matter of time before the badger finds the rodent's refuge. Immediately upon locating its prey, it can begin rapid underground chases, which almost always end with a helpless mouse or vole, caught in the clutches of this bold hunter. While badgers can satisfy their appetite for up to 1 kilogram of meat a day when they encounter an entire colony of rodents, they typically supplement their diet with other prey, such as land birds and their eggs, lizards, large insects, and even dangerous snakes. In the case of reptiles, the badger relies on the resistance it has developed to the venom of many of these predators. So no matter how many bites they manage to land on its robust body, with one swipe, the mustelid almost always ends up acquiring a somewhat dangerous prey, but one that can save it from a suffocating famine. Another food that can provide a good amount of nutrients are the carcasses of animals that have perished as a result of Utah's hectic wildlife. When prey shortages hit the area around its habitat, the American badger doesn't hesitate for a second to do what it must to survive. It becomes a scavenger. Its very keen sense of smell allows it to locate these fresh carcasses up to several kilometers away, allowing it to have a substantial meal with minimal effort. Of course, a copious prey in the open air will not only attract the attention of the cunning badger, but there is an almost infinite number of carnivores that, like the mustelid, will be interested in devouring the juicy carrion. This is when approaching those coveted carcasses can become a high-risk practice, as pumas and coyotes are quick to show up, eager to get their share of the loot. And when sharing isn't an option, violence is the only way to resolve these disputes over carrion. Against coyotes, the badger can be extremely aggressive, attacking with its sharp claws to gain respect, often causing serious injuries that cause the dog to flee the scene, leaving the mustelid to enjoy the carrion in question. For its part, when the adversary is a powerful mountain lion, seeing itself vastly outmatched, the American badger generally does not consider the idea of engaging in hand-to-hand combat, always preferring an honorable retreat that allows it to save its life. With such a feared feline at its front, the badger once again draws its claws, but this time to quickly dig a makeshift shelter to protect itself from the puma's attacks. With its well-known digging skills, it takes the badger no more than a few seconds to dig a hole deep enough to protect itself from the feline's vicious attacks. But Utah isn't just home to impressive underground builders like American badgers. Near the riverbanks, where tributaries create the perfect conditions for their semi-aquatic life, the gentle American beavers position themselves as true ecosystem engineers, shaping their impressive dams. Weighing around 30 kilograms, rarely reaching 45 kilos, the beaver holds the title of the second largest rodent in the world, behind only the enormous capybaras. A dense, lustrous coat ranging in shades from dark reddish-brown to almost black gives them an elegant appearance, fitting in with their aquatic environment. Covered in an oily secretion, their fur is also waterproof, allowing them to emerge almost completely dry from the water. Its wide, flat, scaly tail, up to 45 centimeters long, acts as a very versatile rudder when swimming. This is complemented by its webbed hind legs and unwebbed front legs, giving it amazing swimming abilities, reaching speeds of up to 8 kilometers per hour. In addition to settling in bodies of water such as rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, and wetlands, beavers always prefer environments surrounded by deciduous trees, such as poplars, willows, or birches, which serve as raw material both for building their impressive dams and for satisfying their not-so-demanding appetites. To fell these sturdy trees, the rodents use their powerful, sharp incisors, almost 3 centimeters long. Using them as a kind of natural saw, one by one the trees begin to give way, and immediately the mammal drags them to its construction site, making them float on the water. Of course, to build structures as impressive as these elaborate reservoirs, the beaver does not work alone. Living in family groups called colonies, each member contributes their share of work to shape the dam. These families often consist of a breeding pair along with the offspring of the last 2 litters, which totals approximately 12 rodents. Family unity is one of the keys to beaver survival in an ecosystem as hostile as Utah's. In these groups, social ties are truly close, and communication is a crucial pillar of their daily lives. The most iconic communication signal of this species is its famous tail slap, which produces a loud slap when it hits the water and warns all members of the group of the presence of a potential threat. Although they are not typically highly vocal, their daily routine, they may make grunts, whistles, and babbles intended to maintain close communication between family members. Young animals in particular may use these calls to demand food or attention. Physical contact does represent a crucial element of their social behavior, where touching and grooming are part of their daily relationships. Although these rodents are friendly to members of their own family, when a member of another group approaches their territory, they are not particularly hospitable. In fact, one of the group's most exhaustive tasks is precisely guarding the boundaries of their territories, leaving chemical signals through an oily, musky substance produced in their anal glands, called castoreum. By spreading this fluid on the edges of wetlands and on mounds of earth, the group warns intruders of the family's presence, avoiding what could be violent confrontations. This somewhat suspicious behavior toward their territory corresponds to a clever survival measure, seeking to guarantee access to resources for the family. With up to a dozen mouths to feed, beavers must be efficient at gathering food, especially as the harshness of winter approaches. Their 100% plant-based diet requires the group to repeatedly use their teeth to cut small branches from poplar, maple, and birch trees. Likewise, some leaves, roots, aquatic weeds, and reeds make for considerable snacks. While leaves and fresher forage are often consumed as daily sustenance. Branches and trunks are stored underwater, near their dens, where they will be available when a thin layer of ice covers the tributaries. Little by little, food reserves are taking shape, and the family sees their pantry growing. Although all members of the group actively participate in gathering food, some will not get to enjoy this arduous work. And when the young reach 2 years of age, the moment that coincides with their sexual maturity, the time comes to leave the family group and disperse. This is a crucial stage in their lives, as they leave the safety of their families and must seek out their own territory, finding a mate and the resources necessary to form a group. While for newly banished beavers, it is almost an impossible mission to escape death at the hands of predators such as pumas, coyotes, and lynxes. For family groups, this is no great feat. Vigilantly monitoring their surroundings, the rodents remain alert to the approach of any potential threat. Upon seeing a carnivore approaching, at the sound of a tail swish, all the beavers, without looking back, dive into the water, heading for their burrow, a refuge almost impregnable to any predator. For exiled beavers, besides encountering ferocious felines and canids, one of the greatest dangers to their survival may be finding themselves in the path of a huge American black bear. Weighing almost 300 kilograms and measuring up to 2 meters from nose to tail, this giant mammal is one of those colossi that untamed Utah harbors. Despite its name, the fur of this robust predator actually ranges in shades of black, dark brown, reddish, and even blonde. A generally lighter muzzle and relatively small rounded ears complement its frightening appearance. Like the American badger, the creator has equipped the black bear with very sharp, curved claws, ideal for digging as well as climbing trees. Although its powerful bite and menacing claws suggest that this black beast is a voracious carnivore eager to impose its will on countless prey, the truth is that this mammal is actually omnivorous, enjoying a surprisingly varied diet. About 90% of this glutton's diet is based on berries, nuts, roots, young shoots, herbs, mushrooms, and even bark. Some insects such as ants, bee larvae, and wasps represent an important source of protein, which complements their mainly herbivorous diet. Since they have to meet a huge daily quota of up to 20,000 calories in summer and autumn, meat can also become a significant source of sustenance. This is when carrion, fish, rodents, fawns, birds, and of course their eggs, join the vast diet of this ecosystem devourer. Despite its endless food sources, food will not be handed to the mammal on a silver platter, so it must work hard to find it. During its long walks in search of food, like a bloodhound, The black bear uses its sensitive sense of smell to locate anything even remotely edible. Climbing trees, digging up roots and insects, and turning over logs and rocks, the mammal turns its habitat upside down, trying to find something to calm the rumblings in its stomach. Although it is not an active predator, when it encounters prey, it will not hesitate to show all its ferocity. Using their sharp claws as weapons, a strong swipe is more than enough to end the lives of rodents, small mammals, and even medium-sized ungulates. Any prey it encounters is immediately incorporated into its diet. With such a voracious appetite, this mammal abandons any pretense when it comes to feeding. To recover all the energy invested during a strenuous day of foraging, the black bear usually takes short naps throughout the day. Their favorite places to take these comforting breaks are in areas of dense vegetation, on trees, or even in holes they have dug themselves. Although in summer their habit of burrowing into comfortable burrows also represents a way to escape the harsh heat, when winter arrives, the mammal will enter a long sleep, lasting several months during its hibernation period. But there's still a long way to go, so the bear continues its insatiable search for food sources that will allow it to gain the weight it needs to withstand the harsh winter weather. While males dedicate themselves almost exclusively to devouring everything in their path, life is not so simple for female bears. As a result of the past breeding season, the females must take care of the young bear cubs alone. Although they weighed only about 400 grams at birth, after several weeks of careful care from their mother, the babies have grown considerably in size. Having spent almost the entirety of last winter locked in their den with their mother, the tender cubs are eager to discover the world before them. Every smell, every texture and color represents something new, and it arouses extreme curiosity in the puppies. Of course, being completely innocent creatures, the mother must always remain in charge of her young, because you never know when a cunning predator is hiding in the vegetation, desperate with hunger, wanting to devour the tender cubs. Although species willing to interfere with an adult black bear are practically non-existent, this is a radical change for defenseless cubs. Predators like pumas, lynxes, and coyotes will be more than happy to sink their sharp claws and fangs into the tender flesh of these small mammals. Aside from the danger of encountering these vicious carnivores, sometimes the greatest threat to the cub's survival can be an adult male eager to mate. Because breastfeeding bears do not go into heat, the moment they see a female with her cubs, males know exactly what to do to ensure her receptivity. To destroy defenseless puppies, all it takes is a simple swipe, and the babies end up passing away. Of course, all this will be possible as long as the female is not nearby. The black bear will not be at all happy about a male approaching her cubs, and will respond with all her ferocity, aware of his intentions. Here, one of the bloodiest battles in the entire Utah ecosystem is about to be fought. The male driven by the insatiable desire to procreate and spread his lineage, and the bear fighting for the survival of her little cubs, which she has worked so hard to raise. In this clash of titans, where every mammal has something to lose, every swipe and bite is launched without the slightest trace of mercy, trying to inflict maximum damage on the opponent. Despite the courage shown by the bear in most of these encounters, given the clear physical superiority of the males, who are much stronger and more robust, they end up carrying out their ruthless intentions, subduing the female and ending the lives of the cubs, thus managing after a few days to force her into heat. Although it is extremely raw, it is Utah wildlife at its purest. Despite these acts of infanticide sponsored by males eager to reproduce, and the endless preying on the young by carnivores, such as pumas and coyotes, the greatest predator of this majestic mammal in the entire Utah ecosystem is, by far, humans. While legal hunting of this species is strictly regulated and limited to specific cases, the practice of poaching is a distressing reality that threatens the populations of these majestic mammals. Persecuted for the illegal trade of their parts, such as their gallbladders and paws, as well as a result of conflicts with ranchers, black bears end up falling prey to human cruelty, with several individuals perishing each year. The fascinating antelope is another species whose populations and wild lifestyle have been decimated by various human activities in this ecosystem. Their need for vast plains on which to graze is undermined by the construction of infrastructure such as roads and fences, as well as by agricultural development, a practice that limits their vast range to just a few kilometers and restricts their access to water sources. One wild species that is particularly dependent on the freshwater sources available to it is the gentle beaver. These large rodents are currently facing a threat to their survival due to the alteration of river courses. The channeling of rivers and the construction of dams in the region has limited these semi-aquatic mammals' access to this vital liquid, leading to the disappearance of entire populations. Not even the all-powerful apex predator of this ecosystem is immune to the dangerous threat of the impact of human activities on its vast animal kingdom. The cougar, an example of the savagery and ferocity of Utah's wildlife, faces countless challenges today. Just as the development of human populations restricts their vast territories from hundreds of kilometers to a few hectares, poaching of this feline plagues their populations. Furthermore, hunting species such as deer and bighorn sheep limits the prey available to this voracious carnivore, which has significant repercussions on its hunting habits. Although the challenges facing Utah's wildlife species may be numerous, there is still hope. We still have time to preserve their wild way of life, saving them from what would otherwise be inevitable extinction. By managing the region's resources more responsibly, as well as promoting the creation of nature reserves, it's possible to preserve the captivating wildlife of this region of North America, allowing them to continue surprising us with their stories of wildlife. Did you enjoy this video? Then don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our new video releases. Remember to click the notification bell. Before you leave, don't forget to leave your favorite wildlife species in the comments section and share the video with your friends so more people can learn about the fantastic creatures hidden in Utah's vast ecosystems. Without further ado, we'll see you next time with more stories of bloodthirsty predators, robust ungulates, colorful birds, and of course, stories of wild lives.